And good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is February 17th, 48th day of the new year. Just 317 days remain until the year is over with. Holidays and observances. National Random Acts of Kindness Day. National Cafe and Latte Day. Nova Scotia Heritage Day. National Public Science Day. It's also Islander Day. It's a holiday celebrated in Prince Edward Island in Canada. It gives islanders a break from their normal routine, offering a chance to relax and just enjoy the winter season. Kosovo Independence Day. Global Tourism Resilience Day. National Tennis Pro Day. Champion Crab Races Day. Daisy Gatson Bates Day. She was a trailblazer in the civil rights movement. She played a crucial role in the fight for school integration at Little Rock, Arkansas. Her leadership is said to have made a significant impact on the movement for equality and justice in education. World Human Spirit Day. My Way Day. Be a rebel without a cause. Embrace your unique quirks. And a lot of folks I know have more quirks than they know what to do with. Analog to Digital TV Day. Family Day. Who Shall I Be Day. Some of these celebrations takes imagination. This is a day focused on self-reflection and future aspirations. Gives you a chance to pause and think about your goals and the paths you want to take to achieve them. National Cabbage Day. President's Day. Real Bread Week. Cancer Prevention Action Week. Love Teaching Week. National Entrepreneurship Week. Through with the Chew Week. Alzheimer's Disease Dementia Care Staff Education Week. Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy Awareness Week. Venice Carnival. Future Farmers of America Week. I was in that for a short period of time. Build a Better Trade Show Image Week. National Pancake Week. National Green Week. Make Mine Chocolate. Hockey Week across America. Bird Health Awareness Week. Brotherhood and Sisterhood Week. National Engineers Week. National Nest Box Week. Gives you a chance to invite more birds into your yard. National Condom Week. Can't have too many of those. After all, we were going to give $50 million worth to Gaza. Take Your Family to School Week. Famous people born on this date. Michael Jordan. Paris Hilton. Denise Richards. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. David Coggins, and Billy Joe Armstrong. International Vegan Cuisine Month. American Heart Month. National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. National Snack Food Month. Spay and Neuter Awareness Month. Whether for other people or for your pets. National African American Read-In. National Children's Dental Health Month. Human Relations Month. National Macadamia Nut Month. Feline Fixed by 5 Month. Berry Fresh Month. Exotic Vegetables and Star Fruit Month. National Therapeutic Recreation Month. Marijuana Awareness Month. Financial Aid Awareness Month. We've done a lot of that through USAID, let me tell you. Found out something else interesting today they're doing. Reintegration packages given to those being deported. Among the items in the reintegration package, Barbie dolls that really will help you integrate or reintegrate. National Goat Yoga Month, Adopt a Rescued Rabbit Month, National Mend a Broken Heart Month, National Wedding Month. Canned Fruit Month. National Black History Month. North American Inclusion Month. Renaissance Awareness Month. Renaissance of the Heart Month. Spiritual Teachers Month. Pull Your Sofa Off the Wall Month. National Senior Independence Month. National Laugh Friendly Month. National Enrolled Agents Month. National Care About Your Indoor Air Month. National Boost Self-Esteem Month. Free Open Source Software Month. From Africa to Virginia Month. National Sweet Potato Month. National Avocado Banana Month. Fabulous Florida Strawberry Month. National Cancer Prevention Month. And Cholangiocarcinoma Awareness Month. Spunky Old Broads Month. National Blobbuster Month. Ethnic Equality Month. National Cat Health Month. Humpback Whale Awareness Month. Dog Training Education Month. Declutter for a Cause Month. National Prevent Litter Month. Creative Romance Month. Fair to Remember Month. National Embroidery Month. National Women's Inventors Month. Youth Leadership Month. Haiku Writing Month. Jobs and Golf Month. Love the Bus Month. Potato Lovers Month. Celebration of Chocolate Month. Wise Healthcare Consumer Month. Barley Month. National Self-Check Month. National Condom Month. National Parent Leadership Month. Pet Dental Health Month. Relationship Wellness Month. National Grapefruit Month. National Fasting February. Low Vision Awareness Month. Return Shopping Carts to the Supermarket Month. Great American Pie Month. National Cherry Month. National Bake for Family Fun Month. National Bird Feeding Month. National Hot Breakfast Month. National Library Lovers Month. And Harley Quinn Month. On this date in 1370, during the Northern Crusades, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Teutonic Knights meet in the Battle of Rudaio. Teutonic Knights, of course, was the German version of the Knights Templar. 1411, following successful campaigns during the Ottoman interregnum, Musa Celebi, one of the sons of Bayezid I, becomes Sultan of the Ottoman Empire with the support of Mircea I of Wallachia. 1500, Duke Frederick and Duke Johann attempt to subdue the peasantry of Ditmarsken in Denmark in the Battle of Hemmingstead. 1600, on his way to be burned at the stake for heresy at Capo di Fiore in Rome, the philosopher Giordano Bruno has a wooden vice put on his tongue to prevent him from continuing to speak. 1616, Nurhaci proclaims himself Khan of the later Jin, precursor to the Qing dynasty. 1621, Miles Standish is appointed as first military commander of the English Plymouth colony in North America. 1674, an earthquake strikes the Indonesian island of Ambon. It triggers a 330-foot mega tsunami, which drowns over 2,300 people. 1676, 16 men of Pasquale Perote's expedition are lost at Evangelista's Islet in the western end of the Strait of Magellan. 1739, the Battle of Vasai commences as the Marathas move to invade Portuguese-occupied territory. 1753 in Sweden, February 17th is followed by March 1st as the country moves from the Julian calendar to Gregorian calendar. 1801, the U.S. presidential election. A tie in the Electoral College between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr is resolved, and Jefferson's elected president of the U.S. and Burr is elected vice president of the U.S. by the House of Representatives. 1814, War of the Sixth Coalition. The Battle of Mormont took place on this date. 1819, the U.S. House of Representatives passes the Missouri Compromise for the first time. 1838, Juanin Massacre. Hundreds of fur trekkers along the Blocons River in Natal are killed by Zulus who were unhappy about folks coming into their territory. 1854, the UK recognizes the independence of the Orange Free State. 1859, Cochin China Campaign. The French Navy captures the citadel of Saigon, a fortress manned by 1,000 Nguyen Dynasty soldiers. en route to conquering Saigon and other regions of southern Vietnam. 1863, a group of citizens of Geneva found an International Committee for Relief to the Wounded, which later became known as International Committee of the Red Cross. 1864, American Civil War. H.O. Hundley becomes the first submarine to engage and sink a warship, the USS Housatonic. 1865, American Civil War. Columbia, South Carolina is burned as Confederate forces flee from advancing Union forces. 1905, Russian Revolution of 1905. Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich of Russia is assassinated in the Moscow Kremlin by socialist revolutionary Ivan Kyayev. 1913, the Armory Show opens in New York City, displaying works of artists who are to become some of the most influential painters in the 20th century. 1919, the Ukrainian People's Republic asked the Entente and the U.S. to help fighting the Bolsheviks. Nothing has changed since 1919. 1944, World War II, the Battle of Eniwetok begins. The battle ends in an American victory on February 22nd. 1944, World War II, Operation Hailstone begins. The U.S. naval air, surface, and submarine attack against Truk Lagoon, Japan's main base in the Central Pacific, in support of the Eniwetok invasion. 1948, the al-Waziri coup briefly ousted the ruling Ahmadid dynasty of Yemen. Imam Yahya Muhammad Ahmed al-Din is killed. 1949, Chaim Weizmann begins his term as the first president of Israel. In this day, in 1959, Project Vanguard. Vanguard 2, the first weather satellite, is launched to measure cloud cover distribution. 1959, a Turkish Airlines Vickers Viscount crashes near Gatwick Airport, killing 14. Turkish Prime Minister Adnan Menderes survives the crash. 1964, in Westbury versus Sanders, Supreme Court of the U.S. rules that congressional districts have to be approximately equal in population. 1964, Gabonese President Leon Maba is toppled by a coup, and his rival, Jean-Hilaire Obama, is installed in his place. 1965, Project Ranger. The Ranger 8 probe launches on its mission to photograph the Mare Tranquillitatis region of the moon in preparation for the crewed Apollo missions. Mare Tranquillitatis, or the Sea of Tranquility, would become the site chosen for the Apollo 11 lunar landing. 1966, Aeroflot Flight 65 crashes during takeoff from Sheremetyevo International Airport, killed 21 people. 1969, American aquanaut Barry Cannon dies of carbon dioxide poisoning while attempting to repair a leak in the Sea Lab 3 underwater habitat. Sea Lab project was subsequently abandoned. 1970, the family of Jeffrey McDonald, U.S. Army captains, found murdered in their home in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Eventually, McDonald himself is charged with and convicted of the murder of his pregnant wife and 2 daughters. 1972, cumulative sales of the Volkswagen Beetle exceed those of the Ford Model T. 1974, Robert Preston, a disgruntled U.S. Army private, buzzes the White House in a stolen helicopter. 1978, the Troubles. The provisional IRA detonates an incendiary bomb at the Le Mans restaurant near Belfast, kills 12 and seriously wounds 30 others, all Protestants. 1979, the Sino-Vietnamese War begins. 1980, first winter ascent of Mount Everest by Krzysztof Wielicki and Leszek Szczyci took place on this date. 1991, Ryanair International Airlines Flight 590 crashes during takeoff from Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. It killed both pilots, who were the aircraft's only occupants. 1992, the first Nagorno-Karabakh War. American troops massacred more than 20 Azerbaijani civilians during the, Armenian troops massacred more than 20 Azerbaijani civilians during the capture of Karaladagli. 1995, the Sinapa War between Peru and Ecuadorians on a ceasefire brokered by the UN. 1996 in Philadelphia, world champion Garry Kasparov beat the Deep Blue supercomputer in a chess match. 1996, NASA's Discovery program begins as the near Shoemaker spacecraft lifts off on the first mission ever to orbit and land on an asteroid, 433 Eros. 1996, an 8.2 Biak earthquake shakes the Papua province of eastern Indonesia with a maximum locality intensity of 8, which is considered severe. Large tsunami follows, leaves 166 people dead or missing and 423 injured. 2006, a massive mudslide occurs in southern Leyte, Philippines. The official death toll is set at 1,126. 2008, Kosovo declares independence from Serbia. 2011, the Arab Spring. Libyan protesting against Muammar Gaddafi regime begins. Also in 2011, during the Arab Spring in Bahrain, security forces launched a deadly pre-dawn raid on protesters in Pearl Roundabout in Manama. The day is locally known as Bloody Thursday. 2015, 18 people are killed and 78 injured in a stampede at a Mardi Gras parade in Haiti. 2016, military vehicles explode outside of Turkish Armed Forces barracks in Ankara, Turkey. Killed at least 29 and injured 61 others. Well, that ended our history segment. Let's see what we got in the news of any interest. The SpaceX workers have visited the Air Traffic Control System Command Center on Monday. That's according to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy in a post on X, in which he also mentioned former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, with whom he recently engaged in a social media spat. He said America deserves safe, state-of-the-art air travel, and President Trump has ordered that I deliver a new world-class air traffic control system that will be the envy of the world. And to do that, he said, I need advice from the brightest minds in America, asking for help from any high-tech American developer or companies willing to give back to our country. Well, Hillary Clinton decided to chime in, and Duffy told her to just sit this one out. He said, because I know the media and Hillary Clinton will claim Elon's team is getting special access, let me make clear that the FAA regularly gives tours of the command center to both media and companies. So this is nothing special. I saw a part of a speech given by a representative talking about some of the USAID spending. And according to her, those who are deported are given reintegration bags, courtesy of the USAID. Among the items in those bags are Barbie dolls. Now, how Barbie dolls help you reintegrate into your own country, I have no idea, but Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California, is facing backlash online after suggesting President Trump's to blame for a small plane crash in Georgia this weekend. He took to social media this morning to declare that Trump has had more plane crashes in his first month in office than any other U.S. president. And then he went on to say Trump is the president in charge of air safety. All crashes are his fault, which is an interesting way to look at things. The CBS host Margaret Brennan has open mouth and inserted foot. She's made what many are calling an incredibly dumb and ignorant statement claiming Nazi Germany weaponized free speech, and that led to the Holocaust, which literally makes no sense. If there was free speech, we wouldn't have had the Holocaust. J.P. Morgan's new New York City headquarters is going to offer unusual employee perks. It's located at 270 Park Avenue. Costs $3 billion. And it includes such perks as lunch being delivered desk side and a huge health and wellness center. It's the New York City's largest all-electric tower. It's going to employ 14,000 employees. It boasts smart technology and a 2.5 million square foot flexible collaborative space. It also provides 30% more daylight than a typical developer-led speculative office building, and incorporates circadian lighting to reduce the impact of electric lights and promote a healthier indoor environment. Well, if you got the money to waste, the part of Oregon who is that is very unhappy with the liberal bent of the state is wanting to leave Oregon and join Idaho. There's also been a decades-long call for Staten Island to secede from New York City, and that's ramping up again. During the anti-police riots of 2020, Oregon was front and center as protesters vandalized Portland and made a day-long violent stand in front of the Mark Hatfield Federal Courthouse. But in the eastern two-thirds of Oregon, the conservative geographic majority of the state do not ideologically align with their urban brethren. In fact, over the past several years, the Greater Idaho movement has tried to create the conditions needed for about 13 counties to join the conservative state of Idaho and leave liberal Oregon. Well, according to White House official, Zelensky of Ukraine has not yet signed a U.S. economic agreement and said that's very short-sighted. That would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals in return for the unbelievably large fortune we've dumped in on them. The Charles Barkley doing a telecast, hope the San Francisco mayor can do something about the homeless population. It is growing ever larger. A lot of Hollywood bigwigs are moving to the country. And one of them said it's changed his outlook on life. Well, the Trump's Department of Justice has brought down the Sovereign District of New York. Said that prosecutors are acting like spoiled brats instead of following lawful orders. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove just delivered a civics lesson to a now former top New York prosecutor who was apparently confused about who she worked for. We've seen some of that here in around where we live when individuals believe they are above the law and can dictate to others what the law should be. Florida sheriff says ICE partnership only the beginning in illegal migrant crackdown. A lot of the so-called sanctuary movement are urging their elected officials to ignore ICE detainers. And that's not working. Apparently Trump did a lap around the NASCAR track. Trump administration is trying to do away with deep state agencies that ignores presidential executive orders and kind of goes into business themselves. You know, Tom Hanks has gotten a lot of backlash for his what's being described as a disgusting portrayal of a white Trump supporter in a Saturday Night Live skit. This past Saturday night was the 50th anniversary special, where a lot of liberal actors took out their animosity against the Trump administration. Well, Colorado authorities have recovered what they believe to be the body of missing University of Colorado at Boulder student Megan Trussell. She's 18 years old, last seen at her residence hall on Sunday, February 9th, wearing dark-colored yoga pants, a blue-gray jacket, and white platform sneakers. Well, a deceased person matching the description of that individual was discovered near mile marker 40 in Boulder Canyon. They don't really know what killed her. Been a lot of searching. She was in a hard-to-reach terrain, requiring a technical evacuation, including the need to rappel down. Boulder Canyon Drive was temporarily closed to allow authorities to recover the body and conduct an investigation in the area safely due to hazardous road conditions created by weather. Snow and ice, don't you know? Well, in Kentucky, been a lot of flooding. A mother and a 7-year-old daughter, among 9, dead from the flooding. 1,000 had to be rescued from floodwaters across the state. The mother and child were swept away Saturday night in Kentucky's Bonneville community after their vehicles completely submerged in floodwater. There is a deadly trend in high school right now in some states. It's called the Senior Assassin Game. An 18-year-old was recovering after being shot by an off-duty police officer. You run around with guns and you try to assassinate your friends. The one that was shot was a high school football player who was playing the popular Senior Assassin Game. The off-duty officer encountered 3 individuals prowling outside the agent's Nassau County home in what was actually a game of Senior Assassin. And the game consists of teams using toy guns to shoot each other to eliminate players till the remaining team wins. Well, the agent mistook the teams for home invaders and shot one of them in the arm. According to Nassau County Sheriff Bill Leeper, this type of games may seem innocent, but when you have the young people sneaking around in the dark wearing masks and carrying objects that could be mistaken for weapons, you got a potentially deadly situation. Well, today is President's Day, in case you're, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a federal holiday. But in many agencies, almost every day is a holiday. There was a Veteran Affairs Hospital chaplain was sanctioned because of a sermon, and he fights back with defense of free speech. There's a lot of officials who think their view of the world is the proper view. There's been a lot of talk about the justice or lack thereof in the state of Georgia. I would direct your attention to a book I wrote about it called Why Would They Say It If It Wasn't True? And you can find it at Amazon or at my website, kenhudnall.com. Back in what led to that book being written was the determination of a senior judge that I was a traitor to my race because I thought blacks had the right to representation, and it cost me a career. Let's see. Anything else of any interest? Sophisticated AI-powered malware threats are on the rise for Apple devices. Used to be Apple devices weren't affected by malware. No longer the case. Okay. Well, that ended our little news segment. You know, one of my favorite topics has always been ghosts and hauntings. The paranormal, if you will. There's been a lot of discussion in a lot of places I've investigated. But you know, ghost is not a new phenomenon. Oh no. They were quite prominent in the ancient world. In fact, in antiquity, ghosts were an accepted part of the natural order. Now, that's especially given ancient notions of the afterlife. So the return as a spirit was all too understandable. You know, the civilizations of Mesopotamia provided with some of our earliest literary sources about from cuneiform tablets. We can get an idea of how they viewed death. Epic of Gilgamesh, written around 1800 BC, is a tale steeped in death. Gilgamesh witnesses his friend Enkidu die and realizes he too will one day die. Death and the nature of the afterlife have frankly fascinated humans from the very beginning. What happens after we close our eyes for the last time? Well, when we consider how the Sumerians viewed the afterlife, though, it's hardly surprising that Gilgamesh didn't want to go there. It's a dark and dreary place where the souls of people continue to exist as shades. In a story known as Gilgamesh and Enkidu in the netherworld, we're told how the shades of the dead are kept happy by grave offerings and prayers offered by their living family. Well, what if you don't have a living family left? The man who has only one son weeps bitterly, while the man with 7 sons performing rituals after his death is a companion of the gods, as it was phrased. Meanwhile, the woman who never gave birth is described as like a pot. She's thrown away violently. Performing the proper rites for the dead was a method of keeping shades content in many early religions. Ancient Egypt, there was a well-defined road that a soul traveled along, passing from birth to death to the afterlife. And as long as the soul of the departed was treated with respect, it could expect a quiet and blessed eternity. The provision of grave goods, a decorated tomb, and a preserved body ensured the dead would be happy with their lot in life, or afterlife, as it were. When a tomb was disturbed or a body looted, then the shade would return to earth as a ghost. Even a family skimping on money and providing a cheap burial could be cause for a spirit to return to haunt the living. One man thought his illness was caused by the ghost of his dead wife. He wrote a letter to her shade and deposited it in her tomb, describing all the things he did for her in life and the lengths he went to give her a decent burial. He said, "What thou hast done to me is to have laid hands on me, although I've done nothing wicked to thee." You know, the oldest surviving Greek tragedy is The Persians by Aeschylus and features the ghost of King Darius as a character. Summoned up from the dead, Darius' spirit rebukes his living family for their hubris. That dates back all the way to 472 BC. The Epic of Gilgamesh that I mentioned earlier and other poems from ancient Mesopotamia provide the earliest literary view of the afterlife and ghosts and the paranormal. Gilgamesh is horrified by the idea of dying and seeks to live forever. Unfortunately for him, he failed. One version of the tale, his friend Enkidu willingly goes to the netherworld, but is trapped there, unable to return. Only the gods breaking a hole in the earth allows his ghost to return. The netherworld of the Mesopotamians was not an enviable place. The dead lived a pale imitation of life. Well, if you look back over the history of ghosts, as far back as 1500 BC, despite the Egyptian afterlife being a paradise, it was known that the improperly buried could return to vex the living. Individuals could sicken and die if a vengeful ghost had reason to curse them. And some of the earliest texts of Chinese literature recorded as soon as writing developed concerned ghosts and restless spirits. Proper burial of deceased was a grave concern if you wanted their souls to pass on peacefully, and that came from 1400 BC. So it's concern about ghosts has been around eons. In the Homeric epics of the Iliad and Odyssey, ghosts and spirits frequently appear. The afterlife they describe is a gloomy abode where souls flutter around like bats and only blood can induce them to talk. We've got writings about that going back all the way to the 8th century BC. Now, the belief in ghosts seems to have been universal in the ancient world. The first text expressing doubt was written by Lucian and explains how the philosopher Democritus would hide in graveyards to scare people out of believing in ghosts. That came from the 2nd century AD. Over time, people's views tended to change. The Greek historian Plutarch, writing in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, described the situation that led to a bathhouse becoming home to a terrifying ghost. All started when a Roman army captain came to town and Cyrenene took a fancy to a local boy of surpassing beauty named Damon and did everything in his power to seduce the boy. Well, Damon refused the advances, but feared the captain would turn violent if rejected too often. So Damon and some friends got together one night and murdered the Roman captain and several of his colleagues. When Damon was condemned to death for his crime, he killed the town council as well. Damon and his gang took to raiding and robbing in the countryside, and clearly something had to be done. Town invited Damon back in, begged his forgiveness. When Damon entered the bathhouse to clean himself, townspeople killed him. Plutarch talks about that for a long time after that, ghosts were seen in the baths and several groans were heard. Eventually, that bathhouse was walled up. Even 200 years later, in Plutarch's time, the place was said to still echo with the Ildric moans of the murdered Damon. You can't even get peace going to take a bath. Well, one Egyptian text, a priest of Amun called Consamhab meets with the spirit of a man. His name was Ebusmek, and Ebusmek had a problem. His tomb had crumbled away, and he no longer got offerings, as nobody knew where he was buried. Well, the priest promised to locate it and build a new one for him, but Ebusmek had his doubts. Apparently, the ghost had heard similar promises before from people that he haunted. But the Chinese respect for ancestors was vital if you were to benefit from their aid. It displeased the dead relative to perform all sorts of mischief. And if the burial was performed incorrectly, then a dead person wouldn't be as gone as you might expect. Dead might call to anybody for help. In one tale, a young girl's spirit visits a family and causes a lot of commotion that they stuff her ghost into a bag and toss it into a well. Next night she reappears and the same thing happens again. It's only when the family carve out a log and put her spirit in it that she's satisfied with her burial and passes on to the afterlife. Ancient Greek religion of the pre-classical age had no glorious afterlife. In the Odyssey, the hero Odysseus meets with Achilles, who had shone so brightly in life. And Odysseus tried to comfort the poor ghost of the dead Achilles. He's told, by God, I'd rather slave on earth for another man, some dirt poor tenant farmer who scrapes to keep alive, than to rule down here over the breathless dead. Later, Greeks and Romans, there were mystery cults that offered the dead a way to a better afterlife. But even then, their shades could come back to the world of the living. Pliny the Younger described how a man named Thenodorus visited a haunted house in Athens. Interested in the ghost, he stayed up all night with a lamp, heard the ghost rattling chains, eventually saw him, and when he followed the ghost into the garden, he noted the spot where the spirit vanished. Next day, he dug up that spot and found a skeleton still draped in chains. After being given a fitting burial, the ghost was never seen again. And even the Hebrew Bible is surprisingly quiet on the matter of what happens to us after death. But in book 1 of Samuel, King Saul's faced with a mighty army of Philistines. Prophet Samuel, who might have advised him, is dead, and Saul doesn't know how to overcome his enemies. So to contact Samuel, the king goes to a magic woman, the witch of Endor, who's able to summon up the ghost of the prophet. The words of the ghost are of little comfort to Saul, but they do offer us a glimpse of mediumship in the ancient world. Classical view of ghosts and spirits as pale shades came to an end with the supremacy of Christianity. The Christian afterlife was a much more jolly affair for departed souls than the gloomy fields that awaited dead Greeks and Romans. But even the followers of Jesus had their concerns about ghosts. After the resurrection of Jesus, the Gospel of Luke says the disciples who saw him were afraid because they thought he was a ghost. Jesus had to convince him he really was back by telling him, it's I myself, touch me and see. A ghost doesn't have flesh and bones as you see I have. Well, ghosts were hard for Christians to accept, as they seem to be outside of God's plan for placing people eternally in heaven or hell. So the popular belief of a third place came about, a fiery purgatory where sins were burned away before people went on to heaven, and that became part of accepted church doctrine. Souls of those in purgatory were thought to be able to visit the living. Pope Gregory the Great said that people saw ghosts should offer masses for the sake of the dead person's soul, and prayers could speed people out of purgatory and send them on toward eternal peace. The widespread belief in purgatory came about around the 12th century A.D. And while a lot of folks claim to have contacted the dead before, a mania for spiritualist seances began in 1848. That was when the Fox sisters of New York started hearing rapping noises caused by ghosts. By asking questions and listening for knocking replies, the girls were able to interpret the dead. And soon seances were taking place across the U.S. and Europe. And even after the Fox sisters admitted they'd actually committed a fraud, a lot of folks continued to believe in the power of mediums. Spiritualism became an accepted belief for many, and frankly continues on to this day. Well, the widespread belief in ghosts and demons and other spirits broke out into fear of witchcraft in the Middle Ages. There was a book called the Malleus Maleficarum, translated as the Hammer of the Gods, or the Hammer of the Witches, was written to guide people on how to recognize witches and spirits. That came about around 1487 AD. And Renaissance magicians like John Dee and Edward Kelly believed the spirits of the dead could be called forth at will. And these ghosts could be used to gain wisdom and perform magical feats. That belief came widespread in about the 16th century AD. And during the Battle of Mons, a force of angelic bowmen was said to be seen fighting on the side of the British. Others claimed it was St. George or the spirits of dead soldiers who came to help their comrades. That came from 1914, World War I. And ghostly lights have been reported throughout the centuries, but in the 20th century, unexplained lights began to be attributed to alien spaceships instead of luminous ghosts. These UFOs continue to be reported, even though there's still no explanation. In fact, I wrote a book and went into great detail about UFOs and aliens. It's called Beyond Roswell. You can get that on Amazon or on my website. You know, the coming of Christianity left people seek an explanation for how it was souls continued to visit the earth with such regularity. You know, the visitation of the ghost of the King of Denmark in Shakespeare's Hamlet began with Bernardo and Horatio discussing the appearance of the dead king. You know, seen by multiple people on multiple occasions. It no longer was a figment of the imagination, but a real haunting. According to one witness, before my God, I might not disbelieve without the sensible and true avouch of mine own eyes. Well, you might think of medieval and Renaissance people as being overly credulous, but they knew how to weigh evidence just as well as we do. And as a result, they actually believed in ghosts. Now, the medieval period in Europe was certainly profoundly shaped by Christian belief. For some, the idea of ghosts warred with their faith. God sat in judgment of all souls, and the good went to heaven and the bad went to hell. That doesn't leave a whole lot of room for ghosts, because how can the dead return to earth if they've been consigned to an eternal afterlife by the Almighty? But ghosts persisted to be seen and believed as throughout Europe. The Bible even instructed followers in how to interpret the ghosts they saw or heard of. And one statement said, friends, don't believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. And though the ghostly apparitions may be real, we're told it might not really be what it appeared to be. A ghost could be a demon in disguise, waiting to ensnare the unwary. Indeed, because ghosts seem to be outside of God's plan, they're all in likelihood agents of the devil. And even the great thinkers of the church were said to have been visited by ghosts. St. Thomas of Aquinas was visited by the spirit of a friend who had died, though Thomas didn't know it yet. He said, the Spirit told him, I'm in fact dead, but I have permission to visit you because of your merits. He was also said to have been visited by his dead sister, who told him she was in purgatory and in need of his prayers so she could leave purgatory and go to heaven. With the development of the idea of purgatory, that ghosts became Christianized. By the end of the 12th century, belief in a third place in the afterlife, it seemed to allow a little wiggle room, if you will, needed for ghosts to enter the world. Those in purgatory were souls who had committed crimes serious enough for eternal punishment, but still required purification of their sins before they could enter heaven. Maybe the ghosts were the spirits of those in purgatory, such as St. Thomas's sister. Well, some ghosts made clear reference to purgatory, such as the dark shadow of a mistress who visited her lover to tell him, I can be freed from punishment I'm suffering if masses are said for me by a good priest. One anonymous monk serving in Baylen Abbey in the 15th century wrote down several tales that revolved around ghosts. One of them said it happened this man was talking with the master of the plowman and was walking with him in the field. And suddenly the master fled in great terror, and the other man was left struggling with a ghost who tore his garments. And at last he gained the victory and conjured him. And he, being conjured, confessed that he had been a certain canon of Newburgh and had been excommunicated for certain silver spoons that he had hidden in a certain place. So he begged the living man he'd go to the place he mentioned and take him away and carry him to the prior and ask for absolution. And the living man did that, and he found the silver spoons in the place mentioned, and after absolution, the ghost rested in peace. Well, the church profited from the belief in purgatory, as money was often left for masses to be sung for the dead to speed them out of purgatory. Some people even set up chantries or buildings specifically funded for prayers and masses to be said for their souls. Renaissance saw a flourishing of European culture as a love for antiquity was rediscovered, and people began to question the authorities that controlled them. Now, it was still an age of deep faith, where people worried about what would become of them in the afterlife. Books describing how to die well and be reconciled with God quickly became bestsellers. And as can be seen from the ghosts in Shakespeare's plays, ghosts were very much in the public imagination. Now, the Protestant Reformation generally viewed purgatory with suspicion, as few, if any, biblical allusions are made to such a place and state. Many Protestants view a ghost as a clear work of the devil. James I of England, in the book Demonology, noted how few ghosts were been seen since the split of the Roman Catholicism. He said, for as we know, more ghosts and spirits were seen, or tongue can tell, in the time of blind papistry in these countries, where now, by the contrary, man shall scarcely all his time hear once of such things. Yet even in the existence of ghosts, suddenly lacked a clear theological backing, they continue to be seen by a lot of folks. Renaissance magic took a keen interest in necromancy, calling forth the spirits. Edward Kelly, who worked with Elizabeth I's advisor John Dee, claimed he could speak to the dead through a special stone. And folk traditions also held on to the existence of ghosts. Those who waited outside a church on St. Mark's Eve at midnight were believed to see a procession of ghosts, though they were strictly fetches, ghosts of those who died in the coming year. Across Europe in the Middle Ages, a lot of folks reported a noisy group of ghosts and spirits that would sweep down on them out of nowhere. Known variously as the Wild Hunt, the Furious Army, and the Devil's Hunt, said to be a cavalcade of specters raising a horrible din that ride down those who happen to get in their way. In the Peterborough Chronicle for 1127, a sighting of the Wild Hunt is recorded. According to what it said, a lot of men saw both and heard a great number of huntsmen hunting. The huntsmen were black and huge and hideous and rode on black horses, and on black he-goats, and their hounds were jet black, with eyes like saucers, and they were horrible. Some versions, these ghostly hunters were led by figures from pagan mythology, such as the Norse god Woden. Over time, and with the loss of his followers to Christianity, the Norse god had become a figure of fear and deviltry. Other times and other places, it was unclear whether the wild hunt was composed of demons or restless spirits, and some thought that unbaptized children might form part of the company, while others thought that the hunters might be chasing down those who died without the grace of God. Well, there became what you might refer to as an obsession with death. In an age when resurrection men might dig up your corpse for an anatomical study, there were those who feared the dead were escaping their graves in their rest physical forms. 1681, a book called Seducismus Triumphatus was published that scoffed at these skeptics who denied witches and demons stalked the land. Publisher in his preface defended the accounts of ghosts included in the work, saying they seemed very well tested and highly credible and contained nothing but what's consonant to right reason and sound philosophy. In the witch hunts that preceded it, and particularly in the Salem trials that were to follow, ghosts and spirits played a major role. Because of the shy nature of ghosts, they sometimes only appeared to one person at a time. Even in a crowded courtroom, a young girl might see the ghost of a witch that was visible to nobody else present. And on the evidence of that apparition alone, a person could be condemned to die. Late 17th century was the last hurrah for the witch hunters. Soon found public opinion turning against their activities and charges of witchcraft being rejected by courts across Europe and America. The Age of Enlightenment that flourished in the 18th century saw intellectuals talking on more skeptical attitudes that mocked belief in witches and ghosts alike. The deist intellectuals put their faith in a universe that ran like clockwork, and they thought that a watchmaker god had started it running, but had since stepped back and no longer interfered with his creation. Ghosts, if they existed, were simply part of the order of things. And learned men found themselves stuck between their theories and people's experiences. According to Dr. Johnson, it's wonderful that 5,000 years have now elapsed since the creation of the world, and it's still undecided whether or not there's ever been an instance of the spirit of any person appearing after death. All arguments against it, but all belief is for it. Well, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be talking more about ghosts and hauntings and tales of the afterlife in tomorrow's show. Until then, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show saying have a truly great evening.